Good morning and welcome to a beautiful Tuesday. I'm Bob Pace. I'm your host for the show called Fight CPS and Get Your Children Back. I hope you all had a good weekend this past. I know it's already Tuesday. For some of you, this is maybe your first visit. For others, you've been coming back here time to time. We have several ways we can interact with this podcast. I am live from Southern California. You found me on Facebook, Fight CPS with Bob Pace. And we are broadcasting live on YouTube, and I'm using the StreamYard application. I want to thank Mr. Davis, Vincent W. Davis, who has a law firm, Vincent W. Davis Associates, to produce this show. If you have any questions, please call in at 888-888-6582, and he'd like to hear from you. I'll also be talking about him, too, in a little bit. It's one of my rule number one here. But ways you can interact on this show, it's very easy. It's very friendly. First one is so easy, you just type in a comment. But when you type in a comment, besides your name, I like to know what city and state you're calling from. I kind of keep track of all the different parts of the country and see if there's any difference or similarities among different organizations that handle child protective systems. Now, in California, it's called Child Protection Services, but it's all part of the child protection systems. In other states, it may be called the Department of Children's Services. It maybe have other kind of acronyms, other kinds of names, but anything that deals with protecting our children from abuse and neglect and do family reunification, that's the branch of social services that you're dealing with. If you have a case, it's going to be rough and tough because I'm telling you, the CPS isn't what it's supposed to be. It isn't what it's supposed to be. Now, besides doing a comment, you can also be live on this broadcast right now. I don't have a guest at the moment. I had someone signed up, but a few minutes before we go on live, they disappeared and they're not answering the call. So I have my phone number up here. You can call into the office at 626-698-0990. That'll reach me directly, and I'll answer the phone and let you be able to talk on my speakerphone to the audience. They'll hear you, and maybe you can tell me your story of CPS or what questions or what problems you have, and I'm glad to help you. Now, for all you listening, I'm not an attorney. I work for an attorney. I work for a law firm. They're in Southern California as well as myself, both down in Southern California. But this YouTube video is broadcast worldwide because we have got comments from Australia, Canada, United Kingdom, Ghana, and Mexico. And I'm very much happy to talk to anybody that has a CPS matter. Just the city and country code. In the United States, it's city and state. Not country code, city and country. I don't know why I come with country code. I think I'm doing a phone call, I guess. I don't know. Okay, now, if you want to not be on my show right now, that's okay. I don't need to rush you. You don't have to worry. Oh, we got a comment already. Bernice Campbell, welcome. In the state of California, can CPS take your children without a warrant? Legally, they can't. Legally, they can't. They need a warrant to take your children. Now, if your children's in danger, imminent danger, they will, meaning if you're slamming your child against the wall because they're crying or there's ongoing shooting, violence in your place of habitat, they can take your children, but they need to do a warrant. And that is one thing they break all the time. One time. And they always think everything's imminent danger. Everything's imminent danger. So anyway, I was saying, if you want to be on the show at one of my 14 podcasts, either morning or evening, I'm on at 10 in the morning, 7 o'clock at night. On Sundays, sometimes, not sometimes, but on Sundays I start about 10:30. But this Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I may have a different showtime mornings. Um, so you want to email my producer, Grace. She's the one that handles these podcasts and does a really good job. I really appreciate you, Grace. I know you're listening. So email to Grace at vincentwdavis.com. That's Grace at vincentwdavis.com, and she'll schedule you a time. You can pick one of my 14 shows tonight, tomorrow, morning, evening. And I'm glad to have you on because it's nice to have someone else talk besides myself. Now, I have been involved in CPS. I've been involved with them close for 3 years where they kidnapped my children. They did trafficking on my children. I could not believe it. And I was gullible. Boy, Bernice, I did some big mistakes, and hopefully I can help you not do the same. It's very intimidating when the police show up too. They're not your friend either. I'm sorry to say that. So when Bernice is talking and they take away the warrant, that's my rule number 3, and I'll talk about my rule number 3 because it's really important. I didn't arrange these rules. Rule 1 is how to hire an attorney, and 2 is notebook to take notes, and then 3 is you do not let child protection services traffic your children. Now, I mean by trafficking because they do it. They do it. And there's imminent danger. Yes, they can, but they think every case is imminent danger. In my case, I had some false allegations made, and they thought my children were in imminent danger, which they weren't. And I did not know better, so I let them take my children. It's kind of hard when you believe in your government agencies, the people, that your taxes go to pay for, and including the police, and so my case is horrible. My case is really horrible. Well, let's try to use proper language on the show here. Robin, I don't know where you're from, but I know your anger there. I know how you feel about CPS. Welcome, Robin. And I don't know what city and state you're from. We have Bernice from California. I don't know if she's Northern California or Southern California, but that's okay. And it sounds like you're angry there, Robin. And yeah, I know how you feel about CPS. Hello there, Desiree Larita Erickson. Welcome. What city and state are you from? What city and state you're from? Lincoln, Nebraska. Okay, I know about Lincoln. You're about the third person from Lincoln that's called in before. Robin, you got to be careful. We don't want to use that kind of language on the show, okay? You're from Ohio. Welcome. I don't know if you're from, I've had some calls from Cleveland and Ohio and Columbus and Cincinnati. I don't know which part of Ohio you're from. But Ohio's had some horrible, horrible cases there. And I feel for you, Robin. I know your anger and everything. That's one of the hardest things to do. But I'm back on rule number 3 here about letting them into your home or taking your children. There's also medical trafficking. I know you don't understand what that means but there's medical trafficking. You don't let them do that. I've heard some horrible stories where a woman is in her birthing room giving birth to a child, and in walk social workers and the police, and they take their children. No, that's wrong. That's wrong. They're supposed to wait in the lobby, and it's terrible because a lot of the hospitals have social services caseworkers working for them, CPS workers, and they think because you tested positive for drugs or something there, they got to take your child right away. No, that is wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. The child needs to bond with the mother, and they have to do that. So they do not take you from your home, do not take you from your hospital room. They have to have a warrant. And if someone comes to your hospital room, tell the nurse, get the people out of it. This is for family members. If that doesn't work, ask to speak to the supervisor or the director of the hospital. But that's a no-no. That's a no-no. So as I tell you, is that you don't let them in, don't let them take your children, and do not talk to them. Basically, if they come knock at your door, you look through the peephole, you don't know the person knock your door, don't answer the door. You don't have to. If there's no imminent danger happening in your home, they're not going to break in. And if they do, you have a lawsuit against them. And so, yeah, I agree. It's very wrong there, Robin. Very, very wrong. Oh, boy. Bernice, Robin, and Desiree, if you want to be on the show, you can call in at 626 and 698-0990 and talk about your CPS case. I love to help you go through it. Now, I was talking about rule number 3. Some other things you got to keep in mind too. If you talk to them, just say yes, no answers. Be courteous. The same goes with the police. Don't let them intimidate you. I know they wear their combat boots and they wear their flak jackets and they have the mean look on them. There are some bad apples in the police. There's some bad apples in the social workers. It seems like a lot of bad apples in child protection services. The child protection system is really bad. See, this system started, well, they talk about 3 periods of the child protection system. The first is from colonial days to 1875. And in 1875, there was some attempt to protect the children. From the colonial period, when our country's first getting started, into 1875, there really wasn't much organized at all. There was a Children's Aid Society started in New York in 1853, and they did help children by taking them in and like soup kitchens, and they had them on a train to get them work and so forth. But the second period of the child protection system is from 1875 to 62, and it was a little bit more organized. There was some attempt to protect the children. But in 62, things kind of changed for the better. And then some other things have happened, like in 1975 was the ICWA, the Indian Child Welfare Act, which I'll talk about in a little bit there. Then 1974 is where they first laid the ground rules, really how things are called in, how it started. 1980, there's something important there too, with some rule changes. I can talk about that. Welcome. We have the Truth Movement here. He's from Mexico. He has 2 daughters that he wants to get from Missouri. He used to be in the United States, but they booted him out. He has a similar situation to that Korean boy that was adopted by age 3 up into Oregon. And the people that adopted him forgot to make him a U.S. citizen. And so he bounced around a bunch of foster homes, group homes or single family homes in the foster system. And they abused him. They really did. But eventually broke out of that, started a family, has a business, everything. And then I guess one place he wanted to leave and his foster care parents, he broke back into the home to get his Korean Bible and his toy, I guess, a little kid or wherever he was, and he got arrested. And so then they prosecuted him. It was really sad. There have been sad, sad stories. Anyway, this guy from Mexico is still trying to get his girls back. He was deported too. So I've had people on here that, have been deported, and it's sad. They really love their children's, and CPS is way too bad. So I'm glad that you guys are here. I'm glad you guys are talking, with comments. And thank you for the hands up and the love and the smiley faces. That's great. I like it all there. So, we got a lot of you that came in on different parts there. I'm sorry, I may have you confused, Truth Movement. I thought you were the guy from Mexico that talked to my show. I thought that was you, the Truth Movement. Well, no, I didn't mean to get anything confused there. Okay. All right. Well, you have been on my show, but there's a person from Mexico that had two daughters from Missouri. And he said that the Truth Movement was his link there. So what city and state are you from, Truth Movement? I'm sorry they have you confused. I'm not asking you for Mexico. I'm asking you what city and state are you from? And what is your story? Okay, you're from Washington. All right. There is a gentleman from Mexico who was deported, and he was forced to leave the country. And he wants his daughters back, So, again, this immigration thing is really, really, really bad. Walla Walla. Okay, great. I'm glad to get that straight out there. I will no longer. I'll remember it now. So, and we have Lincoln, Nebraska from Desiree. Robin, I still don't know where you're from. It'd be great if you tell me. Bernice is from California. So, okay, we were talking about rule number 3, and since we're talking here about rules, and we have no one that wants to talk at the moment, rule number 1, that's to get an attorney. You're probably wondering why you want to get an attorney. Okay, my advanced age. I'm forever young. It's okay. Anyway, rule number 1 is you need to get an attorney to fight CPS. And I'm telling that from my experience. I didn't get an attorney. I tried to fight him for a year and a half, waste my time, and lost my daughter. I had 3 kids that were kidnapped and taken because they thought they're in imminent danger, which they were not. And CPS is a very bad animal, and I wish I knew what I knew then, now that I knew then, because I would have hired an attorney no matter what I did. I had to sell my home to get an attorney. So that was hard. That was hard to give up something you worked for 40 years. But I love my family, and I wanted to get my family back together. So you're out there saying, well, why don't you have an attorney? Why can't I use the public defender they give me when I go to court, to dependency court? And, we got a call. Great. Hello, this is Bob Pace. Welcome.
How are you doing, old man? And it is your old advanced age.
Yeah, okay. All right. So this is the Truth Movement from Walla Walla?
It is.
Okay. All right. Good to have you here from Washington. So what was your case about? Now that I got myself totally confused.
it was they had no case. So I mean, we'll start off with that. They took my child based on inaccuracy, and the fact that they were bigger and badder than me, and I couldn't defend myself, metaphorically. So that's why they took my kids, not because they had a legitimate right. I mean, what they expected me to do is what any poor person that doesn't know is right: fight back. That is the dumbest thing you can do. They tell rape victims, especially women, sometimes don't fight back. Just, take notes, memorize who you see, and we'll take care of it. Because as we know, if you're a rape victim and you fight back, you could die, right? So that's how I felt. I mean, they told me, and I'm saying no, and they're like, you can't say no to us. We're the government.
Yeah. What were the allegations? So I know you don't think there was, but what did they accuse you of doing?
Well, that's it. I had a power of attorney for my wife, so that was considered domestic violence.
So they considered that you were abusing your children with a power of attorney?
No, not my children, because my children had not been born yet. My son was just born. Some crazy lady from DHSH, or actually she was a after-hours welfare checker, right? And I told her I didn't want to talk to her, and that right there made her hackles stand up, and she decided she had to investigate. You know how that works.
Well, yeah, they do that. They try to intimidate you, but you could have just said no, and I'll let my attorney talk to you. What you could do is do a ruse.
Okay.
Yeah,
we've been down that, and for me, like trying to on my platform, what I'm trying to advocate for is that, again, let's get back to the analogy of the rape victim, right? Sometimes, even though you could say, hey, you can't rape me, it's going to happen. Does that make sense? So sometimes they tell rape victims.
Oh, I know what you're saying. And also, when I talk, I'm not necessarily talking. I am talking to you, but I'm talking to my audience right now. I have about 16 people in this room, so I try to help them because they may not be as good as you are about defending themselves. Because right now,
and I'm totally with you on that. Because I've been in this rodeo for a long time, and like you. I got my Facebook page, my YouTube page. Long story short, I mean, I think you guys are just a little bit off kilter. Like the other lady that talks on, the other
Mrs. G. Mrs. G.
Situation.
Is it Mrs. G?
And what's her name?
Mrs. G.
Yeah, and for me, it's like, I mean, we can honor Nancy Schaefer. You and I and her know who Nancy Schaefer is. Most people do not understand or know who Nancy Schaefer was.
Mm-hmm.
Long story short, I mean, she predicated herself. I mean, she died in the line of battle. And I'm not telling people that they have to die in the line of battle, but it is a battlefield. And in battles, do not people die? And I mean, metaphorically, right?
Yeah, right. Metaphorically, yes, but it is severe. You don't have to tell me that. Okay, first of all, I tell people, and you probably heard this before. It's like Alice in Wonderland. She falls in the rabbit hole, and she goes through all these doors and things. It is a complex mess of deception, lying, abuse to parents, trafficking your child, thinking they're in imminent danger, and trying to make money off you. That's all the whole purpose is money.
Well, no, I agree, but that is the lie, right? And I'm not trying to say money doesn't exist. I'm not into conspiracy theory, but I am practical, and I grew up in a time like you that we had men like Billy Graham who told men, look, I would never go into the room with an unaccompanied single lady by myself. He said that. He also told white people back in the 70s that, did you know that Jesus people were colored. I'm not bringing that up to dredge any. I'm just saying it's common sense, right? And your common sense and my common sense aren't necessarily going to be the same thing, but yet they tell everybody to have common sense.
Right.
How can we have the same common sense if we don't think the same?
Right.
And I mean, like her, she is a devout Republican, right? I'm a devout Democrat, right? And when you bring in politics into this kind of scenario, right, then it's no longer about the virtue of the fight. Because Nancy Schaefer, even though she was a Republican, she didn't really throw that out as her mantra, right? She was about the children, even though she was a Republican, right? But that isn't, and for people to talk about Joe Biden, well, let's talk about Donald Trump. And the irony of that is instead of talking about the children, I got into a typing text war with her over, why I'm wrong about liking the Democrats. Well, I'm going from my perspective. All my life been a Democrat and always been treated right. And for anybody else to say that I'm misguided and that I've been woke.
Well, I don't want really want to get into politics on the show, even and Chris like that. I like to keep our focus on people's cases. You had a case, and I'm trying to understand what happened to your children.
Okay, so let me ask you a question, sir.
Yes.
Right? So when you get hemmed up by CPS and they come to your door, right, and they're telling you, well, we're going to notify the police. And I mean, you've told, but there's another venue. Just don't open your door for them.
Well, that's why I tell my rule number three, I was just starting to talk about it, is that when you look through the peephole and you know it's somebody you don't know, you don't open the door. It's your castle. You have perfect rights to. They need a warrant. One of the people this morning asked, do they need a warrant to take your children? I said, yes, they do. They cannot take your children. But not only do they take your children thinking that everything is in danger, they take it from your home. They take it from your birthing room. They take it out of the hospital. It's unbelievable what they do. In fact, one case I had, the lady went into the hospital in Boston, Massachusetts to have surgery done. She left her children with her mom, the grandmother of these children, in Rhode Island. And what the CPS workers, somehow the hospital told them, this is where I'm talking about medical trafficking, they called CPS and said, we have this lady here and she's going through surgery and stuff, but she was groggy, didn't know where her children was, but she had her children safe away. They investigated, and then CPS found out they were at their grandmother's, so they drove from Boston, Massachusetts to Rhode Island, which is only about half an hour away or whatever, and they knocked on the door of the grandmother. The grandmother didn't know anything and then took the children. I've heard of some really strange stories. I mean, it's just, so you don't open your door. That's understandable. And you don't do that to the policeman too. And if you do talk to them, you're outside and talk to them, I tell you, do not talk to them. And if they persist to say, my attorney will get a hold of you, you don't need to tell them you don't have one, but you will get one, or you can play the game there and give me your name and number and be polite and walk away. If you get any pegged by CPS, because they've already figured you out. If you're homeless or you don't have a job or you lost your job and you're don't have very much money, they're going to capitalize on you because they know that you're not educated enough and not to do out there. And so I'm telling you, is that you're right. You do not let them in your home. You do not let them in your home.
Well, see, I have this really cool privilege that I get to go review what the Supreme Court in my state told the Attorney General, like talking about collateral or, what evidence is. And like, for instance, we call it ER 703 and ER 705. I think you guys call it Rule 3. You know how they're all different depending on the state that you're in.
Yes.
But, like substance. So they tried introducing hearsay evidence, right, which was the cliffhanger of my case and how I would violate it, right? So they're asking
Did you have an attorney at the time?
Did
you have an attorney at the time when you're doing that case, the Supreme Court of your state?
I had a lot of attorneys. I didn't just have a attorney. I had multiple attorneys.
Okay.
And all at the state's expense. I mean, seriously, I had very good attorneys, and I should reiterate that I I don't know if they were really good attorneys. I just know that they thought they were going to get away with doing what they did to everybody else. And they're like, pardon? I go, I want an appeal right now. I don't agree with the judge. I go, and I made standing objections whether my attorney wanted to do it or not. Right. So if you go through my document, you'll see in the Supreme Court heading that
now,
I myself
how did you get from how did you get from dependency court to the Supreme Court of your state, and how did you do that?
Because I challenged the validity of the dependency. That when they initially took my kids, right, they have 72 hours to get you into to see if they have cause, right? But we went through all that, and I had a malicious judge who rubber stamped everything, right? And without any proof other than hearsay, right? Which she relied on hearsay, and then. You know how that works. Once they get you past that part, then they get you into those parenting classes.
Right. Did you do appeal? Did you do appeal there?
Yeah, I appealed right off the gate. I mean,
right. Okay. So the dependency court made a ruling. They had a case plan for you, and your children were taken from you, or you still had possession of them?
No, my child was born in the hospital premature.
Okay.
Right? So we never got to bring him home.
Well, there's the mistake right there. There's the mistake right there. They're not supposed to take your child from the hospital unless they had a warrant. They do this all the time now. In fact, one case.
No, we were in the hospital.
No, they do this all the time from your birthing room. The mother was still attached to the umbilical cord, and they took her baby. A policeman and a caseworker.
No, but see, we were traveling, right?
I didn't know you were traveling.
Our car broke down, and
okay, that's starting to feel.
Water break, so we're inside the hospital.
Okay.
And so we didn't even have CPS in our life. But when your kid is laid up in a hospital, I wasn't allowed to visit my own son inside the hospital. I could only see him over camera.
Why was that? Why were you denied? Why were you denied not to see your own son? That doesn't make sense to me, because both parents, the father can be in the birthing room.
I was trashed from the hospital. I keep forgetting that you don't have the backstory, and there is no backstory.
No, I don't know your whole case. I'm just stabbing in the dark.
I'm saying for the audience.
They don't know either. They're probably as lost as I am, because but I don't understand. Mothers and fathers can be in the hospital having a child, and CPS cannot take that child unless they have a warrant, and the warrant's got to be something issued.
Take the
So
child.
so you had the child, but you're not in the room. You weren't there having the child, though. You said you had to look through a camera, or you had to be far from the child. You're supposed to be in there.
Okay, wait. No. After the child was born, you keep jumping around like I do, but that isn't.
I'm not trying to jump. I'm trying to start from the. Okay, the child comes out, and the child is being born. Were you in the room when the child was born?
Yes, I was.
Okay. So then you got to see the birth. You got to have your child. So why did you no longer can be in the room as your mother's nursing it, and you get ready to take the baby home or take him where you're traveling to?
No. Again, that never transpired. Why? My wife had our baby 6 weeks premature. Right? So, I mean...
That makes no difference. It's premature. That's not neglect or abuse. Okay? All right. Okay.
Wait. Okay, look. We were in the hospital for 3 days without a baby. Right? We didn't have a baby yet. There was no collateral on us. There was no CPS. We were treated awesome off the gate.
All right. Okay.
Then the child was born. They realized that the child was not coming home, so they put the child in NICU. So what happened was, it's just like we went from staying at the Taj Mahal because that we were that kind of people. They found out that we weren't really Taj Mahal kind of people, so they sent us out of there somewhere else. Even though it's affiliated with the Taj Mahal, it wasn't.
So your medical insurance didn't cover.
We were in the maternity ward of St. Luke's, or what was it?
Yeah.
St.
So maybe your medical insurance didn't cover the kind of a.
Sacred Heart.
Well, maybe your medical insurance didn't cover the cost of that room that you're originally in.
No. See, and I hope you don't take this as the wrong way. No, it was a hospital. We were at a very upscale hospital.
I understand that. You're upscale, but it suddenly changed. Why did it change? So why did it change? Why were you guys taken from a nice room to have your child, and your child is premature, so you're going to spend some more time at the hospital?
We did not have our baby. He was in NICU. They moved him up to NICU, so he was on a form of life support.
That's fine.
So, and I mean, honestly, again,
and does your medical insurance cover you? Okay, I'm trying to understand why.
Yes, we had medical insurance.
Okay, then why could he not stay in that room?
Again, but see, that's it. Again, and what I have trouble understanding, is. I mean, the irony of this is that, again, and I'm not sure, I'm being facetious in this. Nobody has to tell another person anything about themselves, right? But that being said, that isn't normal. We are social people, so we tell each other our stories. Well, like I said, we were at the hospital. For the first 3 days, my wife she had heavy labor. The baby didn't come for 3 days, right? So we were in the maternity ward because maternity wards are for mothers and babies. Well, my wife, our son was born, and he had to be moved to another part of the hospital. Maternity wards are for mothers and babies, right?
Okay.
That's what they told us.
Well, I thought
maternity wards are for mothers, and because we didn't have a baby, they weren't sending my wife out of the hospital. They were just sending her to a different part of the hospital. We were no longer on this beautiful part of the hospital. They sent us to a different level, which is more ghetto. We didn't have the same kind of nurses. The doctor was
that maybe because your insurance didn't have the coverage that they probably didn't have the medical coverage that they needed for that part of the hospital you originally were in.
No, it's just a standing rule.
Well, no, I've had.
You don't need to
okay, I have 6 kids, so I already know that when my wife had a child, I was in the birthing room, and then we transferred to her room for one, for her and her baby, and I could stay there, and I stayed overnight. So, of course, my children were not premature, but all I know is that my insurance covered me for that. And so you tell me you're going to be put into the bad part of the hospital, you no longer can stay with your wife and child. That only tells me maybe the insurance wouldn't cover it.
You do exactly what CPS does. You took collateral and turned it into telephone. You changed the whole context of what I said. None of that happened, right? But yeah, it was said. And then now there's 2 stories out there about the same incident. Your story is off base. It's not your fault. You're just going by what you.
Well, I'm guessing, and I'm doing that by my experience. I do that by my experience.
Wait, but no, and I mean,
yeah, I'm doing that by my experience. I'll listen.
Right.
I'll go ahead. I'll let you take it from there. I'm just trying because my viewers are very confused. I'm seeing the comments and they're confused, so that's why.
Well, no, it's pretty a self-explanatory thing, which is what I'm trying to tell you, Mike. How I won my case. It was very, very simple and very complicated. It was simple in this, is that I told them, F you, right? At every turn. They said, you got to do this. And I said, no. Right, and I would tell them, so I'm just a rape victim here, and they're looking at me, and they wrote all this stuff down because I was being honest on this. They kept telling me I had to talk to them, and I said no, right, and they just kept pushing the issue, and then they would go into court and say, Mr. Condi's confrontational. He says he has rights. I mean, seriously, they would literally go into court and say that. I offended them by telling them that I had a legal right to record my interaction with them, and they'd be going, "You don't. It's against the law. It's eavesdropping." Or I'm like, "No, it's not eavesdropping."
All I know is that when you ruffle feathers of authority, when you ruffle feathers of authority, you're going to end up going through hoops. I did it for a year and a half, fighting the top dog in Southern California for CPS. And they will go against you. In fact, a social worker said, "You never see your daughter again." And her truth was given. And I had one of the best attorneys in the country. He got back my 2 sons, but I went through hell for 3 years.
Right,
and so
you understand
I know that by making waves.
You understand the power of the precedent, right?
The power of the what?
Of a precedent.
No, I do not understand the power of
a court, like the Supreme Court puts precedent down on what Roe versus
Well,
Wade
I never had to go to the
Roe
Supreme Court. There's 2 Supreme Courts. There's your state Supreme Court and your federal Supreme Court.
Well, no, but I'm saying when you get a precedent. That being said, I live in Washington, and my case set a standard, right? I mean,
well, it may have. There may be a precedent set. I mean, I'm not. But what I'm trying to analyzing is the transition from your wife being pregnant. You both are in the room. She has a premature baby that needs additional medical attention, and then suddenly you can only look at the baby now and the mother, because that room is only for those 2 people, which I've never known that before, but that's fine up there why they do that. So I don't understand how you got into the Supreme Court, because you have to go to dependency court and you have to be charged. What will you neglect or abuse of? That's only 2 areas that CPS does, neglect or abuse. So what did you neglect and what did you abuse with a newborn child?
Again, we didn't neglect and we didn't abuse.
Then why did you have to do appeal? Why did you do the appeal? Are you talking about your violation of your rights? Your civil rights were violated? Your constitutional rights?
No, but that's it. I didn't do anything wrong. And I mean,
then how did you get in dependency court, or how did you get in Supreme Court if you did nothing wrong?
Because I had a power of attorney for my wife. They considered it domestic violence.
Well, that's a new one on me, because I know there's verbal and physical. There's verbal and physical violence, domestic violence. There's verbal violence where you argue in front of your spouse, which is wrong, and you will have to, answer to that. There's also physical domestic violence where you hit each other.
No, but see, you were wrong, right? For you to say that, it is not against the law to argue in front of your children. It is it's a First Amendment protected activity.
No, I'm sorry.
Right?
Under CPS,
I beat that in court.
Well,
I beat that in court. They cannot, unless you're being violent.
I'm talking about 2 people arguing in front of your children is a no-no in CPS's standards. Now, it may not be a no-no in whatever rule. I just have to find that rule so that I can share it with people, because everybody I've heard have lost their children.
Is it a constitution? Is it codified in the law book? Did you know that you don't have to follow their policies? Those policies are for them, not for us. When they put policies out and they say these are the policies, they don't apply to us. You are an American. You are a free citizen. Now, the only thing that they can make you do are the things that what is a lawful order? So if a cop comes up to you, I'm just being honest. So if a cop would come up to you right now and demand your ID because he had suspicion that you were somewhere you're not supposed to be, do you have to give him your ID? Because he said he has suspicion, right? And that's not true. Suspicion alone does not give anybody, no cop, the right to take your ID from you by force. Right?
They can't take it by force. What you do is you say, I'm not answering anything until I talk to my attorney, period.
Right, but I mean, you don't even have to say that.
You don't argue with policemen. You don't argue with CPS. You do not.
You don't have to talk to them.
No, you do not have to talk to them. And you don't. All you do is just say, I need to talk to my attorney. You're your constitutional rights say that you can be represented in all factions of whatever criminal act has taken place by an attorney. And if you don't have one, then the court appoints you one. But I'm saying is that if you're a first time arrested, only thing you have to do is sign that you promise to appear. That's all you have to do. Unless there's a violent going on, that you're shooting somebody, you're knifing somebody, you're beating up somebody, then they will take you into jail. And if they take you into jail, it's called wrongful. It's a civil lawsuit.
Yeah, again, do you know how hard it is to succeed in a lawsuit against the state with?
Oh, I know it is. It's a lot of money. You're talking millions of dollars for a lawsuit against any government agency.
Right, but it's really hard, and especially for poor people. Like, if you don't have $50,000 to put down on representation, even though you have a $1 million lawsuit, there are a lot of attorneys that still want a lot, and I get it. No, I'm not complaining about that. That's just life. But they stack the table. I mean, both sides. I mean, the defense in their aspect that they want a whole lot of money. The prosecution, because unfortunately they have a whole lot of money at their disposal. And I don't know. I mean, just getting back to my case.
Okay.
And telling people, look, I did absolutely nothing for them. And I mean, exactly the way I'm acting here is the way I acted to the court, to my not probation officer, to our counselors, to anybody that came to talk to me. I'm like, why do I have to talk to you? Well, don't you want your kid back? I go, oh, so now you're threatening me.
Well, see, you see those kind of comments, those kind of things, those you just said, are very threatening to government workers, social workers, and they're going to do. I hate to say it, they're going to do revenge. And if you did that in front of a cop, he's gonna beat you up. Go ahead.
I'm okay with that. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't want to be beaten up by a policeman. I don't want to have I already had one child taken away, and after I fought for a year and a half on my own without an attorney, I got an attorney. He told me what to do, and I got my 2 sons back.
And but can I ask you, did you have to jump hurdles for the state to get your kids back?
Yes, I did. I was wrongly charged. I did a whole year where they had they had a civil matter on top. They copied the CPS's what they were charging me with. The detective for the city decided to do something parallel, but he added something different. Besides the neglect, he added sex, but he wouldn't tell what the sex was. It was a trading card because they're hoping that if they drop the sex charges, you accept the neglect charges. That's what they're banking on. And that's what they did for a whole year. And I did not know that.
I get that part. I get that part, but
it's true. And they were doing revenge. They were upset because I had ignored them for 5 years. And they did a trick thing where they followed me and then they pulled me over and then they said, you need to come to your home and we need to go see what's inside. And of course, they didn't find what they're looking for, but it was at that time I did not know. I should have told them, give me a ticket, arrest me. I need to get my wife. I'm not following you back to my home. I'm not my home, my castle. That's what I would do now. And I would sit there and say, I need my attorney, and you can speak to him.
Like I said, all I know is that had I listened to my lawyers, right? And I had lawyers. Don't get me wrong. Had I listened to them, I would have lost. I mean, that's just a fact. Had I did, and here's the caveat for me: had they not listened to me, I still would have won. Does that make sense? I kept telling them, it doesn't matter who's representing me. I'm telling you.
That's why I tell all the listeners.
I figured out how to file a.
That's why I tell all the listeners.
And I know my rights.
That's why I tell all the listeners that if you keep being persistent, say yes, no answers, you will get your child back. And eventually it will happen. You go there and you do what they want you to do, you will get your child back. It will take you 3 years. It may take you 5 years.
you'll have your kid back if people file their appeal. And again, it's something I don't hear any of you guys really talking about, the power of an appeal and what the process of it is and what its purpose is, right? And it's the lawyer's fault. And I'm telling you, it's the lawyer's fault because you know what? When you start setting this precedent, like right now, no, they know what they did in Washington is against the law, and they can't get shielded from qualified immunity because my name, and I mean you can go look up AC, and you'll see that they're already using my precedents in other child cases. Why? Because they were getting away with using hearsay. Like, for instance, they would call you as a witness, and then they would tag you as an expert. And experts, if you were an expert, the hearsay rule doesn't apply to you the same way as it would to a regular layman, right? And that they were wrong, and they were getting away with it. They would qualify somebody as an expert witness, and because they were an expert witness, they were talking about how they came to their conclusion, not based on
did you do what's called a fact-finding appeal? Did you do a fact-finding appeal?
Yes, I did.
That's why, if you find the facts that there is a conflict,
yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Well, there was a conflict off the gate.
Right.
They said that we abandoned my child, right? That was
now I finally got your neglect. You abandoned your child. That's what I wanted to hear. I don't want to hear is this your allegation. I don't care if it's true or not. But you were charged with neglect for abandoning your child. Now, why were you charged neglect for abandoning your child?
I wasn't charged with nothing.
You have to be something. CPS does not just go out there and not say anything. They have to say what type of abuse or what type of neglect.
But see, there wasn't.
Well, I've talked to over 500 people.
We hadn't took him home.
Okay, I've talked to over 500 people. You're the first one that tells me that CPS did not charge any neglect or abuse with you, and you just said that you were abandoned your child. That's a form of neglect. I'm not saying that's true. I'm not saying that's true. I'm not saying that's true. I know that. I know you're pissed off. Right. I know you're.
No, you do the same thing they do. Right? How did I abandon my child if I never left? If I was always there, how did I
understand that. I understand it, but they think you. They think you. I don't think you abandoned your children. I don't think you abandoned your children.
What's up?
I don't think you abandoned your children. They think you abandoned your children. That's why they took your child. That's why you're into trouble. That's why you had to do the appeal. If you didn't have to, why did you have to do an appeal?
Okay, I told you. No, wait.
All right.
I told you my child was born in a hospital that I never got to take him home. Right.
I understand that. That has happened to a lot of parents. You're lucky because usually what they do is that when the
No, but see, you guys, and I mean, this is the irony of it.
I'm not you guys, by the way.
You keep giving power to words. Right? You're too damn smart to know that. To not know that, right? It wasn't abandonment. Call it what it was.
I'm not saying that's what is the truth. I said that's what was alleged.
But that's not what you're saying.
Well, I'm saying again, you were alleged that you abandoned your child. You're alleged. Now, alleged does not mean, of course, CPS thinks it's true. In the CPS case, of course, you are guilty until you're proven innocent. You're guilty.
This is how I dealt with them. I'm like, you got to be shitting me. Right?
Well,
you're going to try to take my kid based on that? And you want me to be nice to you?
Well, see, I know that if with any kind of government agency, if you be nasty, they will tear you apart or cause trouble.
I'm asking you, please stop. I don't care what the government does. I'm telling you, they didn't do it with me. And you're not telling your people that, you know what, use that voice. Right? You tell them, look, and if you have to scream it loud and clear that you're being raped, because that's what they're doing to you.
Yeah.
Right? I was going to court, and I would have to put a judge.
You have to be.
I wasn't afraid of
you have to be
please shoot me.
you have to be
That's
respectful.
all I'm saying.
You have to be respectful, and you have to be able to talk, because the reason why you sound like you have all these problems.
Come on, sir. Really? Are you serious?
You have to be respectful. You cannot retaliate them. It's. Have you ever watched Parliament in England? Have you ever watched Parliament in England and compared it to our Congress in the United States? Parliament end up there bad-mouthing everybody and throwing shoes at each other. Our Congress maybe do stupid other ploys, but if you show more respect and go along with the flow, but do it legally, you have to come with legal things. It's the law.
Hey, that's so asinine. And I mean, that is asinine, and it's sad.
Okay.
And this is what I'm trying to wake people up, man. They're not playing, brother. They're not playing, right? They're gonna.
I know that, but being anger is not going to work for you. Being anger is not going to work for you.
Oh, really?
No, it's not.
It's not. My kid back.
Well, yeah, but look at all the trouble you had to go back to get your kid back. Look all the trouble you had to do appeal. You had to go through. All right.
I mean, nobody against her. I would run in the race with everybody else who got end up in the same manner I did. They weren't getting nothing.
Okay. Well,
I mean,
I'm
at least I was getting paid for my time.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm glad that you called in Truth for Movement, but I have right now about 5 minutes left of my show, which I have to bring it to a closure because we get done in 5 minutes or 4 minutes. And so what I want to do first of all, I want to thank you for calling me in. I'm sorry I got you confused, the guy from Mexico. And so now we got that straight. You're from Walla Walla, Washington. And so now I remember Walla Walla, Washington. I will remember your case now. And Robin, Harrington, Ohio, I'm so sorry that they took your child. And she's upset right now. I hope you call back in. And Bernie, they took my granddaughter from the hospital without a warrant. Well, Bernice, I'm sorry that you're the grandparents, and the grandparents in CPS doesn't really count. They're not really good there. So I'm sorry about that. Delenzo Larita, thank you for calling in from Nebraska, Lincoln, Nebraska. And I understand how you feel so negative about them. And Bernice Campbell from California was the one that first started things off. I want you all to understand, I didn't really get the chance to go through all my rules today, but that's okay. You've seen many of my shows. But I want you, that if you need help, to call Mr. Davis at 888-888-6582. He is a professional family law attorney, and he will do consultation for $49.99. That's $50 for 30 minutes. And you can talk to him, and he'll help you with strategies of how to fight CPS and how to get your children back. What you want to do is that you don't want to give up. You want to keep trying for your child. They're very important to you. I feel for you, and I also hurt for you. There's a lot of people upset, and I understand that. It really is really, 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 really hard to be dealing with this. I've been doing this for 14 years. I've talked to over 500 people across the United States and the world, some countries, and the common thing they have is that CPS is not working. It's not functional. It does not protect our children. They've over-exaggerated. There are children today that are being hurt and abused. Where has CPS been? And so I want you all to keep listening and call back in. And again, if I upset anybody, I apologize. I try not to be. And I'm a very loving man, and I really want you all to get your children back. So I'm going to tell you all that to have a good day. God bless you all, and I'll see you tonight. This is Bob Pace signing off.